the Proud Painter of Provence. The artist who thought too highly of himself. In the rolling hills of Provence, where lavender fields stretched to the horizon and the air carried the scent of fresh bread and wine, there lived a painter named Étienne Dubois. Étienne was gifted, so gifted that his paintings of the countryside seemed to breathe with life. The sunflowers bent in the breeze, the rivers sparkled, and the faces he painted seemed ready to speak. Word of his work spread far beyond his village. Merchants hung his paintings in their shops, noblemen requested portraits, and travelers came just to see him paint in the town square. But as Étienne's fame grew, so did his pride. He began to sneer at the work of other artists. "They are children playing with colors," he would say. "Only I understand the true art of painting." He charged high prices, refusing to paint unless the client was wealthy. Villagers who once admired him began to feel the sting of his arrogance. The king's request. One day, a royal messenger arrived from Paris with a parchment sealed in wax. It was an invitation from King Louis XIV himself, who had heard of Étienne's brilliance. The king requested a grand painting for the palace, a masterpiece that would capture the glory of France. Étienne swelled with pride. "Finally," he said, "the greatest king calls upon the greatest painter." He set to work, filling his canvas with dazzling colors and bold strokes. But in his eagerness to impress, he painted not the beauty of France, but only his own grandeur, crowning himself in the corner of the painting, towering above all. As Étienne painted, an old farmer named Jacques, who sold vegetables in the market, often watched from a distance. One day he said, "Monsieur Étienne, your work is fine, but perhaps you should let the land speak too. France is not only kings and crowns, it is also the soil, the rivers, and the people." Étienne laughed mockingly. "What do you know of art, old man? Stick to your carrots and cabbages." Jacques simply nodded and walked away. But his words lingered in the air like the scent of lavender after rain. The king's judgment. When Étienne finally finished, he traveled proudly to Paris to unveil his masterpiece before King Louis and the court. The silk covering was pulled away, and gasps filled the room. The colors were bright, the brushwork masterful, but the painting was filled with pride. Étienne had painted himself larger than the king, grander than the land itself. King Louis frowned. "Your hand is skilled, but your heart is arrogant," he said sternly. "A true artist honors not himself, but the world he seeks to show. You have painted your pride, not France." Humiliated, Étienne bowed, his cheeks burning. "Forgive me, your majesty," he stammered, but the court was already murmuring with disapproval. A lesson learned. Shamed and dismissed, Étienne returned to Provence with heavy steps. For weeks, he did not paint at all. He walked the lavender fields, sat by the vineyards, and listened to the voices of the people he once ignored. One evening, he saw Jacques the farmer again, tending his vegetables. Étienne approached him quietly. "You were right, Jacques. I forgot that art is not for glory, but for truth. Will you forgive my arrogance?" Jacques smiled warmly. "Of course, Monsieur Étienne. A field forgives the plough when it learns to sow gently." The humble masterpiece. From that day, Étienne painted differently. He painted the farmers at work, the mothers with their children, the markets alive with chatter, the hills bathed in sunlight. He painted not for kings, but for people. When he unveiled his new work in the village square, the crowd was silent at first, and then erupted in applause. For the first time, his art carried not just beauty, but humility. Word of his new style spread back to Paris, and years later, King Louis called for him again, not because of his pride, but because of his heart. The legacy. Étienne became remembered not as the proud painter who once failed, but as the artist who learned that humility gives meaning to talent. His works still hung in noble homes. But his greatest masterpiece was not a painting at all. It was the humility that finally gave his art a soul. Moral of the story: pride may dazzle for a moment, but humility leaves a legacy that shines forever.